So hi everyone. So today I'm going to take this webinar for engineering surveying. So to begin with the webinar today, I would like to go through the contents first as I've listed down here. I would say this webinar would be for about 30 to 40 minutes and I'll be going through these topics in the same order as shown here. And as Tulasi said, like you can shoot your questions when you want to and write down in the chat box and I'll be answering all of them at the end of the webinar. So initially I'll start with talking about what is surveying as such. I know that some of you may come from a civil engineering background, some of you might not, some of you might have done your studies way long back and you may have forgotten. So I would like to touch upon what surveying is, what surveys do in general. Then I'll give you a complete overview of surveying. I'll talk about the significance and importance of surveyors, why the work they do is really crucial to any civil engineering project, what are the objectives of a surveying task, and what are the broad classifications of surveying. So surveying can be classified based on different means. It can be classified based on the instruments used, it can be classified based on purpose, but primarily it's classified as plane surveying and geodetic surveying, depending upon the size of the project, where you ignore or you consider the curvature of the earth in your calculations. After that, I will be talking about the basic fundamental concepts that every surveyor would like to know, or every surveyor uses in his day-to-day tasks. So in these basic fundamentals, I would first talk about control points. What are control points, and why are they important, and how are they used, and how these control points can be used to locate an unknown point whose coordinates are not known. And I will also talk about the very common general technique that is used in surveying. It's called as working from whole to part. So I would explain about the technique. I would say why we do approach surveying problems using that particular technique and why not the reverse technique. And then I'll briefly talk about the evolution in the field of surveying. So I would generally give you information about how technological advancements have influenced surveying as a field and how surveying has caught up with those advancements as well. So that would eventually lead to the state of the art technology that is available in surveying currently. Uh, I would mainly discuss about three techniques or three instruments rather. One of them is total station, which is the most commonly used surveying equipment for small scale projects. The next one is real-time kinematic GPS. Now talk about how it works, what are its advantages, and what are its limitations as well. And then I will talk about an interesting technique called as LiDAR, that's light detection and ranging. What are its components, how it works, advantages and disadvantages as well. And finally, I have put together a case study in drone surveying. UAV stands for unmanned aerial vehicle. So it's a sophisticated term for drones. So drones are in layman's language. Engineers call it as UAVs. And after that, I would give you suggestions about how to prepare for a career, or if you're already a surveyor, how to climb up the ladder. What are the alternative career paths you can take up as a career as a surveyor, and I will also talk about what are the job opportunities that exist in Indian market and also in markets abroad. And I will also talk a little bit about companies which groom surveyors and which hire surveyors. So without wasting any more time, let's go into the actual details. So first, I will talk about what is surveying. So surveying is basically sub-disciplines in civil engineering, as simple as that. It's a subfield in civil engineering. Civil engineering as such, it has many different disciplines within its own. Like you have structural engineering, you have geotechnical, you have water resource, you have surveying, you have transportation engineering, and so on and so forth. Now, surveying as a subdiscipline is mainly used to survey or study a piece of land or sometimes a very large topography, depending on the size of the project that you're involved in. And if you are especially a person who enjoys mathematics or who is passionate about maths, especially arithmetics, geometry, trigonometry, then you can really be a good fit for surveying. This field is for you. Generally, in this field, we measure horizontal distances, vertical distances, and angles. So this is crudely the three most important parameters that you will be measuring day in and day out in the field. Now, angles, that's angular measurements, can be horizontal angles or vertical angles as well. These days, some sophisticated equipments bypass these measurements and you directly have coordinates. So let's say if you use a GPS, you wouldn't measure horizontal, vertical distances or angles. You would rather start measuring coordinates. So that's basically a brief introduction to surveying. And next I'll move on to the overview in which I'll talk about the importance of surveying and surveyors. So here I have presented you the significance of surveying and why surveyors are very important. Now, in any engineering site, surveying is probably the first engineering work that is done on the construction site. So if you have a barren land, if you have a piece of land, and if you want to build a structure on that piece of land, the very first thing that people do is surveying, followed by soil testing, that's geotechnical work, and then they plan and execute the project. So if the surveyors make any mistake, that's going to get reflected in all the other subsequent phases. And the worst thing is it's going to get multiplied because surveying is the very first step that's being done. So surveying is, as a task, it's a very simple task because you are going to measure only distances, angles. You're basically going to deal with trigonometry and arithmetic. So it's all mathematics. But this field is very error sensitive. So if you even have 1% error or even less than that in a survey, when it comes to the final product, that is the structure, you're going to face some legal implications or even financial implications. Let's say, for example, I'm from Chennai. So let's take the case of a city where two home builders are building residential projects next to each other. If anyone measures a plot for a building and makes a small mistake, then they will be responsible later, because if one of the builders has hired a surveyor and he is surveying a piece of land, and by mistake he has slightly intruded into the next person's adjacent piece of land, and he has told the geotechnical engineers to go and do soil tests in the bigger piece of land that he has told them, and eventually he tells the structural engineers to go and construct on that piece of land. When the finished product is there, that construction company, then they realize that, oh, we have slightly intruded to the other person's piece of land. Now they can't be asked to demolish the building because that's going to be costly. So what they do is they'll be generally taken to the court if you go into other person's private land, as you know, or sometimes they have to pay out of the court settlement. So surveying, as I said, is very simple, but it's very easy to make errors as well. So that's why this profession as such, and even surveyors, have a lot of demand, because they need to be very, very accurate in whatever they're doing. So they play an important role in all civil engineering projects. Now, what does a surveyor do? What is the main objective of a surveyor? So you can ask me, okay, you have told me that a surveyor is important, but what does he do? What does he exactly do on the field, and what is the final product? So the final product is generally a map. They generally prepare a map, or they establish land boundaries, or they can also select sites for construction projects. So the first objective, preparing a plan or a map of a region. So why do we need this? I can explain this better using an example. Let's say between Chennai and Bangalore, uh, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka government, they want to lay down a railway track for high-speed bullet train. Okay, let's say it's an upcoming project in the next 5 years. So what is the first thing that engineers would be required to do? They would contact the surveyors and ask them to survey the whole region joining Chennai and Bangalore to see what is the economical route in which they can lay down the track. Now, if you know maths, you can easily say that the shortest distance will be the economic route, right? So the shortest distance between Chennai and Bangalore will be a straight line, right? So we might be deceived to think that a straight line joining Chennai and Bangalore would be the shortest distance. Of course, it's the shortest distance. We could also be deceived to think that it's the most cheapest option to lay down a railway track in that direction. But unfortunately, you might have to consider other factors like do they have any residential buildings in that path? Do they have any water bodies in that path? Do they have any forest areas? Let's say if you have forest areas, you can't just build your railway track on top of the trees, right? You have to first uproot those trees, right? And if you have residential buildings, that's even worse. You have to go and talk to those people. Like one of my friends in Sydney, because they're building Sydney Metro now. My friend was approached by the government to give away their house. So of course the government was paying them. So if you want to take up some person's private piece of land, or if you want to demolish their house, you need to pay them, right? So you would generally want to avoid taking that route. And what if there are water bodies? Like let's say when I travel from Bangalore to Chennai, let's say if there's a small river or lake on the way, I would generally need to construct a bridge on the river or lake, right? I can't just put my track on the top of a water body. So in addition to money, I'm also going to spend more time and effort because I need to lay down a bridge for the region. Maybe it's 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, or even longer. So that's gonna complicate the entire project. So that's why surveyors, they give the plan or a map of a particular region so that the engineers can have a look at it and say, okay, this particular route looks feasible. The other route has a lot of complications. We need to ask people to move out. We need to uproot trees or construct bridges. We will just drop that. We'll take this route. So that's the main reason why a plan or a map is developed, and surveyors play a main role in developing that. The next one, as I said, is to establish the boundaries of land pockets. Again, as I said, this is to simply avoid legal disputes and avoid financial implications. So people expect you to stay within your own piece of land. That's it. So when you survey, you need to make sure that you're not surveying into the other person's region, and you're not intruding into other person's region. Then the next one is selecting suitable sites for engineering construction projects. Let's say I have a road project along a hill station. So I want to build a road from the foothills of the hill station to the topmost point. Then people would simply think that, okay, the easiest way is to go around the hill, right? But sometimes you may have to look at other factors like weather, because in some areas it would be cheaper to go through a tunnel instead of going through the whole hill on the periphery or the circumference. It's better to go through a tunnel. But sometimes the tunnel may not be safe because of landslides and all that. So you need to have a holistic understanding of how different factors like weather works, how traffic will be going once the project is established, and how time and cost are involved. Okay, so this is generally the broad objectives of surveying. And next I'll be moving on to the different types of surveying. So the most broad classification is plane surveying and geodetic surveying. So plane surveying is that kind of surveying in which the curvature of the earth is ignored, and a piece of land is considered to be flat. A line is considered to be a straight line. It's not considered as a curve. And this is generally for smaller projects, because in smaller projects you don't really need the highest level of accuracy. Medium or moderate level of accuracy is enough, and for that you don't generally use sophisticated technology. You use the average technology which is used by everyone in the industry, which is much cheaper than the sophisticated technology. Because when you work on small projects, like when you work on areas less than 250 kilometers square, your primary motive is to make maximum profit. So these private firms, they would be generally focusing on profit. They wouldn't compromise completely on the accuracy, but they would make sure the accuracy is up to a certain limit, and beyond that they don't really care. So instruments like chain, tape, these are primitive instruments. These days theodolite and total stations are used. But if you use more sophisticated instruments like GPS, of course you will get more accuracy, but it's generally for higher areas. So if you look at the figure here, you can see the difference between a plane survey and a geodetic survey. So generally, Earth is not flat. Earth is a sphere, right? So all pieces of land are not flat. They're all curved. But sometimes you might approximate or you might assume that my piece of land is flat, because that works much easier in saving money, in saving time, and also in saving labor. Because if you're going to consider the Earth's curvature for a simple construction project for a residential home, then that's going to actually cost you a lot of money in using technology which is uncalled for. When you go for higher projects, or when you go for bigger projects of state level or national level or even international level importance, then you start using geodetic survey. Generally this is carried out by government agencies because they have enough funding, and private firms carry out this one. So that's the basic classification of surveying, but there are also other types of surveying which I will be discussing. So one is based on the purpose or the place of the surveying. So the first one is property survey. It's mostly done for residential projects, and the main aim is to make sure that you find the boundaries or the peripheries of areas of land. Okay, it's also called by different names. It's called as boundary survey or cadastral survey or land survey. This is mainly done to avoid legal disputes. The next one is topographical survey. In this survey, generally a map or a plan is prepared for a wider region of land, and that region of land could include man-made features or natural features. Let's say there are talks in Chennai that new airport is going to come up, so just outside the city. So before thinking about that area, the surveyors would have gone to that area, looked at different sites. They would have gone to actually different parts of Chennai, looked at different sites, and see which one is the most feasible, which one is going to be economical, which would not affect the traffic and all that. So that's generally topographical survey. And if you're going to hilly regions, as I said, the land itself has different patterns at different places. So you also need to take that into consideration. The next one is hydrographic survey. It's basically water survey. This is done by marine engineers or marine surveyors. They survey different water bodies like lakes, rivers, and oceans. They generally measure the depth of the seabed or the riverbed or the floor of the lake, and they try to get as much information about the feature of the seabed. So what are the topography in the seabed, how it affects the living beings that are being in the sea and all that. Okay. This is generally done when you construct an oil well or offshore platforms. This is mostly for the sake of petroleum and stuff like that. The next one is aerial survey. Now, in aerial survey, images of land are obtained using aircrafts. As you can see here, it's a crude image of land. It's obtained from a satellite. Sometimes you could obtain it from a plane or a helicopter, sometimes even from UAVs, that is drones. Now, the interesting thing is that there are no measurements done on the field. So you don't do any measurements in the field. You just take the pictures and go to your office, and all the measurements are done only in the lab or in your office using software. Okay, that's aerial survey. So the next survey is route survey. So this is a particular type of survey which is mainly done before linear projects. Say if you have national highways, or if you want to build like water canals, or even oil and gas pipelines, water pipelines, then you use this project. It's mostly done in a linear fashion. The planning, design, and the construction of these projects are done after the surveying has been done. And the next one is construction survey, which is a part of land survey. It looks like land survey, but this is generally for larger engineering projects. When you do for smaller engineering projects, it's called as cadastral survey or property survey. When you do for larger engineering projects, it's called as construction survey. And in this survey, the very first step is to um, demarcate different points. Before I start the surveying itself, I demarcate or mark different points in the wider region, and then I split it into different parts and then start surveying. So that is called as construction survey. And the last one is mine survey, where the relative positions of different underground points are found using surveys. Sometimes there could also be safety audits or safety surveys in a mine. So that's especially because you would have read in the news also. Sometimes people get caught uh, because of landslide, or people die because of landslides in the mines and all. So to avoid such mishaps, these are done, and safety protocols are revised from now on then. So that brings us to the end of the classification based on purpose or place.